This really is like putting like an O1 preview on your prompting.
The reason that these things are familiar and being used this way is because it is from code.
Those general principles include clarity, specificity, structure,
chain of thought reasoning, example standardization, example enrichment, rewriting, and pre-fill additions.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, November 21st, and we're trying a little something here. So this is Use Case Thursday. We're going to talk about using the Anthropic Console to generate prompts and then improve the prompts. So the idea behind this is that there are so many people who say, yeah, I've used AI, but, I'm not thrilled by it. It does not give me kind of the value that it seems like it's giving everybody else. I'm not sure what there is to do. And then you go through this huge learning curve about how to prompt. And one of the ways that that we're prompting now, that the influencers and like prompt gurus that I respect, like Rob Lennon, are prompting now is to start with a prompt that's generated out of Anthropic's console. So I am gonna toss to Andy or Jyunmi so I can log into Anthropic's console and talk for a little bit, and then I'll pull it up. Thanks.
Great. Let me just say in general that there are general principles for good prompting. And if you're good at generating instructions to one of your coworkers, giving them the complete context, giving them a specific task, and giving the intern and or colleague the expectations you have about the output of their work product, then you're going to be really good at prompting with an AI, because it's really about that. Those general principles include clarity, specificity, structure, and importantly with AI, maybe a little distinct from directing your human coworkers, is examples. Examples of exactly what the instruction set would be, and then what the output response would be. And if you put examples into a prompt, that dramatically increases the fidelity of the response.
That sounds like a pretty straightforward foundation. I wanted to see Anthropic came out with an article, blog post essentially, that really introduced the concept of a prompt improver and those capabilities direct from Anthropic Console. But I wanted to go through what they identified as their 5 methods, right? This is how it strengthens existing prompts. And as Beth gets the example set up, we can go through each of these steps. Now, the 5 steps are chain of thought reasoning, example standardization, example enrichment, rewriting, and pre-fill additions. And so through these 5 methods, Anthropic says their prompt improver will strengthen any of your existing prompts. And this is all through the Anthropic console. So Beth, are we ready to go with the example?
We are ready to go.
Before we start, let me just say one other thing, which is, prompt improvers have been around a long time. One of the very first things that came into the ChatGPT world was a service called Prompt Perfect, where you would give it the prompt that you wanted to do, and it'll come back with a better structured prompt. And if you look in the custom GPTs, if you're a subscriber to OpenAI's system, there are many custom GPTs that have more than 100,000 conversations all around prompting. So, this is Anthropic Console's prompt improver is not. It looks like some brand new thing that's been delivered, but it's a very good one, and it is probably optimized for prompts that you're going to use within Claude, but they're also applicable to other LLMs if you use them.
Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that is helpful in the context that you all laid out is that you were talking about systems that you want to pay attention to in order to write good prompts. The idea behind using Anthropic's console to generate a prompt is that you don't need to know all of those things. So let me go ahead and share my console. And are you seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the console of Anthropic. You don't need money to use this or the prompt generator, but you do need to have signed up on their in their backend, right? So you need to sign up to their console.anthropic.com/dashboard. And then generating prompts are free. They'll give you, I think, $5 of credits in order to move forward. And hey, Brian's here. And I forgot to say who is here. Hi. Once again, we're talking about generating prompts with Anthropic's console tools. That's what you're seeing on your screen. And I am joined by Jyunmi and Brian. And I am Beth. Thanks, everybody. Okay. So when you're in the console, you see this dashboard, and it says you can write a prompt from scratch, you can generate a prompt, you can improve a prompt, you can get API keys, manage batches, and explore data. We're just going to come right here, and we're going to say we want to generate a prompt. The first way you can generate a prompt is I have a goal. Who's got a goal that we want to generate a prompt for? You can pop it in the chat. One of my co-hosts can say stuff, or I can just pop something in. Going. All right, we're going to generate a content calendar for an AI podcast. So we are going to say, write a content calendar for a daily AI podcast. That's all I'm going to say. That's my business goal. I'm going to write that. Now, again, this isn't writing the content calendar. This is writing the prompt so that I can use Claude or another LLM to write the calendar. So it may or may not get the distinction of that, but let's just say I've clicked generate, and it is generating the prompt. And thanks to the magic of streaming and live television, this is going to happen very quickly. So what we're doing, so there are a couple ways you can start this. One is start with a goal, which is what we're demoing. If you want to get a little more detailed, you can start with your inputs and your outputs. So that structure would be, given a transcript, I want you to pull out all of the things that Beth said and give them to me in a table format, right? So you're saying essentially, given an input, I want you to do a process, and then I want you to format your results in a specific format. I tend to use table because when you get a markdown table in your system, you can, like, when the content is returned to you as a markdown table, you can just copy and paste that into a spreadsheet. And let's actually talk to the co-host, because this is taking a little longer than I thought because of the magic of streaming, but it will definitely come back. So let me stop my share. And
let me just say first that when I've used a console to improve a prompt, not generate a prompt from nothing, as we just demonstrated, but when I've used it to improve a prompt, it was very quick.
yes,
It did not take any time at all, even though it had to ingest I think a pretty complete prompt to start with, but then reformat that, restructure it in order to optimize it according to all the many rules that I'm sure are behind the scenes for optimization of prompts.
So I am gonna try it in Chrome because maybe Opera and Console are not having a good time together. Which means I am closing all of the things. Thank you very much. Here we go. Let's try again. Brian, do you use Anthropic Console? Like, what has been your experience?
I don't use it to generate prompts like you're doing at the moment, but I imagine you're going to get into improving prompts. And I think it's interesting anytime you have another tool that can look at your prompts from a different perspective. Now, I will say all prompts are not compatible across all platforms. There's always going to be small variances in there. For the most part, you can't take a verbatim Claude prompt and have it work exactly the same way in ChatGPT. But that doesn't mean that you can't have it at least evaluate your prompt. What I find is that I typically have more in a prompt than is necessary, that there's orders of efficiencies that can be found within a prompt, which is really, really important. I want to cut out as much fluff as possible, but I might be looking at that prompt and saying, I think this is as efficient and as streamlined as it can be, but I could put it through Claude, and I'm sure you'll show this. I could put it through Claude and it might organize things a little different. And I'll go, oh, I hadn't thought about organizing it in this way or in this numbered, ordered way. That is more efficient. But then I go to myself, okay, like, but will it work? It looks good. It is more organized, but will it work? And then there's that whole evaluation process of sort of side by side comparison. So yeah, I love it. I mean, I know these tools have been around for a while, but Claude has been sort of leading the way as far as helping people write really, really good prompts.
Yep. And so one of the things that happens when a prompt gets written in this way is Claude structures things through XML tags. You may have at various times been told different ways to communicate to the LLM that what you are asking for is a prompt with sections, right? And so Andy was talking about that. This prompt generator generates the sections for you. And it puts them in XML tags um, instead of having something like Markdown, which if you've seen a prompt and it has a bunch of hashtags in it, that's a Markdown format. One of the good things about XML tags is that if anybody remembers how you hand coded HTML back in the, I don't know, dark ages, it shows the beginning and ending of the section that you're talking about. Whereas for um, sorry. Whereas for Markdown, it's just telling you what this section heading is, but it's not actually telling you where the section ends. And so, one of the reasons that that's important is because you might have instructions, a whole list of instructions, and then some sub instructional kinds of things like maybe the list of disallowed words, or maybe something like a particular format that is part of the instructions. Because you're putting them in XML tags, you can have mini containers within the larger container.
So let me build in just to talk about the context of what we're really doing when we're using console prompt improvement. This is in the context of building a prompt that you're going to evaluate and test and put into a production kind of use. This is not when you just sit down with a chat with one of the models, but you could use it for that. You could, try to use the prompt improver for that kind of thing. But what we're really talking about, and what Brian and Beth do so well, is build structured prompts that are built with Markdown formatting or XML tag formatting and have the correct components that will create a reliable and reproducible output from a certain expectation that is built into that prompt. Okay, now I was using the prompt improver to try to improve the prompt that's behind the scenes for an OpenAI API, integration of an application. I was doing this last week, and I used the console within Anthropic for Claude to improve the prompt that I had already built. And it did. It did a really nice job. But as Beth was just explaining, it uses a different structure in the format of its just typing out the prompt for variables. So if you're building a prompt that you're going to reuse, you want to put variables in it that you can then add a new value to that variable for a certain run, and it'll run and use the prompt, but with new information that you've input to the variables. Well, in Claude, I think it used square brackets for a variable, and in ChatGPT, it uses double squiggly brackets or vice versa. I forget.
Yeah, vice versa.
The way around. What I had to do is I had about 10 different variables in this prompt. And so I had to go through laboriously in an editor and change every one of those squiggly brackets into the square brackets or which way I had to go. So these things aren't perfectly interchangeable when you're moving from one model to another. If you're going to use Claude's prompt improver, it's going to use its formatting, and then you're going to have to modify that. But I guess you could build a custom GPT, right, to revise it, because you can have a custom GPT built to say, okay, here's the format for Claude, here's the format for ChatGPT. If I give you one in Claude, I want you to convert it to ChatGPT format.
So here's the thing, Brian is going to show this. It isn't that you have to do it, because these are prompts and not code. For Claude, when you're going to improve a prompt and you're going to tell it has a variable, it automatically recognizes that is the variable structure. And the reason that these things are familiar and being used this way is because it is from code. But because ChatGPT understands code as a language, it doesn't, like, if you set up that the square brackets is a variable, it will work with the square brackets. If you set up with something else as a variable, it will work with that. So because it's experiencing code as a language rather than as a program, if that makes any sense. Go ahead, Brian. Tell us what's on the screen.
Well, I was adding to what Andy said, because I was like, yeah, I ran into the exact same issue as Andy was saying with the square brackets versus the curly brackets. So I mentioned this before. This is the prompt library for specifically for sales that I built out and continue to add to. And so if we look at, which one did I just have open? This one. You can see in here anything that's in bold is a variable. So you can see I have an upcoming meeting with, here's the name of the company. I have a activate browser mode and visit the blog at insert blog link, and so on and so forth. There's different variables in there. Now, if we go over to, we will try this on my side to see if it runs, to see if Claude is happy on mine. Then you can see it's a little bit, that's why I wanted to show it to you on the other screen. This is the same prompt, or at least I think I grabbed the same prompt, but we can't expand this window, which makes it a little tough. But all I had to do was just go in and change out any of the brackets or I don't know, into the curly brackets, whatever they're called, right? So insert company in there, insert an investment page. And then I think there's like a third one in there, insert website in there. And you can see as I do that, it actually says it detected these variables, right? Because now I put them in the two curly brackets on both sides. And so I can see clearly down here, yep, it's gotten all the variables I need to run. So what I did was I just took a basic prompt. I just grabbed one really. Now, let's keep in mind, Claude wouldn't actually be able to run this prompt because it's asking it to go to the internet. But let's keep that aside for a second, because we can still improve upon the prompt, whether Claude is capable of going to the internet or not. So you can see down here, I didn't put any system prompt in it at the moment because it's pretty relevant what I want inside the prompt. And it says, what do you want to improve? I said, I'd like to improve this prompt for clarity and to improve the quality of the output. I could be more specific there, but let's just go ahead and run it and see if we get it to actually run through the process live. Okay, it is moving, planning initial draft. So you can see the steps here.
Got it. So you're improving the prompt.
In this case, I'm improving my prompt. I'm not writing a net new prompt. I'm improving it, which I know is different than what you initially showed, Beth, but I was trying to pull something.
No, it's the second half of the show. So sorry, eat dessert first.
Sorry. I was trying to pull it up to see if it would work on my side, Beth, so I was moving quick.
No, it's good.
Okay, and so it's moving through the process, steps 5 or 6, and then we get this final result at the end here. And now we can open a workbench and continue to work. We can edit, or I can copy and paste. And it's okay if you guys can't see the difference because it's small, it's tiny, it's gray on gray, which I don't understand why any developers allow this. Anybody that has any sort of like color blindness or gets a little bit older in age, I feel like that all these new websites are for new people or young people, because why am I having to read gray on gray? Anyway, it makes it hard to read. I'm sure it's even harder to read on the YouTube live feed here. But what you're seeing here is now that it is reworked and reorganized this prompt. And actually, I would say that this prompt is actually a little bit longer than it was, but that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not more concise. It just might use more language, and you can see it's done a really good job of using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, clearly laying out the steps. So please follow these steps to complete your research and analysis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you conduct your research, document your findings in thorough and thought process inside the analysis tag. This will help ensure the thorough and transparent analysis in your analysis, right? So on and so forth. Your final output should be structured like this, so on and so forth. It's actually a really good tool because you could see where the prompt started. Let's just flip back over. And I think I am actually on the wrong prompt here, but it's one of these prompts. Yeah, I think this is it. So you can see where the prompt started. This is the full prompt that I initially had. And you can kind of see where Claude is taking it through 6 steps of research. This really is like putting like an O1 preview on your prompting and saying, work through this process logically and critically and come up with a better process to do it. It's not trying to necessarily be fast. It's trying to do a good job of reworking that prompt to make it. So that's how I've been using it. Is I have all these prompts. I have 150 plus prompts in the prompt library. And realistically, I would have to test every one of them, right? I can't just blindly assume that this prompt works better than the one I had in there. But if I had the time and resources, every single prompt that's in this prompt library, 150 plus, some of them are 5 prompts deep, I would go in and I would say, Claude, look at this, rework this, and then I would have to test side by side. And I'd say, this is the old prompt to ChatGPT. This is the new prompt to ChatGPT. Am I getting an actual better result to it? Because of the improvements in ChatGPT recently, like very recently, and its ability to do line item thinking or critical thinking through steps on a full prompt, as an example, 7, 8 months ago, I was at limits of what I could tell one. We kind of always say, don't make a mega prompt. But even if I wanted to, the mega prompt would get very confused if I had, let's say, 5 orders of operation that I wanted to happen in order. I would have to say, do this, give me the result. Now do this, give me the result. Now, based on that result, do this, right? You guys have all seen chain of thought thinking or chain of thought prompting, which still does work because it gets ChatGPT to focus on one task at a time. But the models are getting smarter. And I am finding in a lot of cases, you're seeing more of what like Claude is suggesting, which is, hey, I don't necessarily need these 5 prompts broken out anymore, because in the prompt, I'm smart enough to go through a process, stop, and then work through another set of process through it. So the technology has gotten way more advanced over the last couple of months. And I would even dare say in the last couple of weeks, I've seen improvements specifically on ChatGPT. We're talking about Claude, but either one of those tools, Gemini probably as well, with its ability to do critical thinking through larger prompts.
Right. Actually, Justin's just saying that. It feels like Gemini is not great at creating prompts on his own, but is decent at improving and reworking them. I would say that's true. As you know, the co-hosts are all coming from our own experiences. I would say that the prompts that get generated from Claude work really very well in the other systems. They do encourage that kind of thing. So I am going to try this because Claude was working for me.
Let me push back on that a little bit, Beth, to explain what I'm talking about, because you're saying they do work very well. Here's where they don't. if Claude does an actually great job of creating a scratch pad, which is like its own internal memory tool. It's actually fantastic. I wish all the other tools work like this. But you will notice with Claude that as it's working through the process, it's like, hey, go hold this in like this virtual memory scratch pad because you're going to need it later in the system of prompts. If you try to take that type of prompting where it says scratch pad or you see it in the brackets and move that over to ChatGPT, ChatGPT does not do a great job of understanding what it's supposed to do with that. That to me is much more of a specific Claude feature, which I will say right now is superior. So it's like you're having to undo it and go backwards. I hope though in time that ChatGPT is able to understand the idea of holding parts of a prompt in virtual memory and making a scratch pad that's never visible to the user, because the end user doesn't need to see everything. We could see that in O1 preview where you can expand and look at the thinking, or you can keep it collapsed. And I think we're seeing more and more of this, but that's a specific example, just a little pushback there, Beth, on what I'm talking about as far as it not being directly copy paste in my experience, at least.
Okay. The what is being held in memory is what is written. So it isn't actually writing something in its imagination and holding it. It is giving you the most likely answer if it had done that, which may in fact very much seem like, oh, it did this great thing. But yes, everybody has their own prompting things and prompting styles. So here we go. Let us come to this. Good morning, Beth. We're gonna write a prompt. Why are you still showing that? Because I am seeing generate a prompt. Oh, because it's a window. All right. Let me end that screen share. Let me try to share the window because it's very exciting. Here we go. There. Now, there you go. All right. We're taking this to write a content calendar for daily AI show posting to LinkedIn twice a week based on, yeah, no, I'm okay in editing the prompt. Based on, and now you see what Andy was talking about. So it's 2 curly brackets and a topic. That means that Claude will understand that that is a variable. I'm going to say generate. Okay, we get a malformed prompt because of course we do. This is a live demo. Let's go back and try it again. No. All right. So we're gonna just refresh that page. We're gonna copy this because if you have ever tried to do anything that you have written many times, you should totally copy your stuff. All right. Ask me why I scheduled 3 shows last night before this show was actually scheduled. Because I needed to write it multiple times. Okay. So all right. I'm gonna get out of this. We're just gonna punt.
Hey, Beth, I was going to say, can you just show me that prompt one more time? I'm going to try to just write it really quick while you're talking and just see if I can get it to run on my side. What was the prompting in? Can you paste it in there?
Yeah.
Create a content calendar. I got that far.
For LinkedIn, for a daily AI podcast, for LinkedIn on topic.
For LinkedIn on, and then the variable is topic.
Yep. And it is in the private chat. LinkedIn twice a week.
Thank you.
Okay. So the real point of doing this show, and clearly we'll be doing some stuff that will, oh, maybe it's gonna, I'm not even gonna say it. He hasn't missed a free throw yet, right? No, let's just keep going. This is amazing.
It ran on my side, Beth, if you need me to share my screen.
The real point of doing this is to help people who feel like you have to go through a bunch of hurdles before you get to being able to really use a prompt. Because you could actually just put in the prompt, write a LinkedIn calendar, right? Like you can go to ChatGPT or you can go to Claude or you can do those things and you can do that and it will generate something for you. The point of this is that you are generating something that's going to be better that then you can edit, right? It's the same reason that you ask the LLMs to, yeah. It's the same reason that you ask the LLMs to give you a first draft of anything that you're writing, of anything that you want to create.
Here you go, Beth. Do you want to just, this is exactly the prompt you just had. And I did get it to run on my end. So do you want to just kind of talk through what we're saying? I'll scroll if you like.
Sure. So one of the first things that you want to notice is at the top, it's going to give you the topic XML tags. When you are running prompts, you and particularly with Claude, if you're running the same prompt that has the same content over and over again, it can be cached, and which means that it will save it in memory, because save in memory is apparently the sub-theme of today's show. So you can move that back. You can move that down to the end of the prompt if you want. It will still understand it. But yes, so we have it telling it what the persona is, right? You're a talented something that Brian scrolled away from. Thank you.
All right. I thought that was the part we already saw. My bad. There you go.
You're you are tasked. It's giving it the task with creating a content calendar. So it's reframing what you've said as your goal in the prompt, and then it's announcing the variable, and so then that's the variable. And follow these instructions, and then it's giving specific instructions, right? So it is in the instructions. It doesn't put it here, but you may want to say, like, exactly read through all the instructions before you commence the task. Those are some things that you might edit. But yep, now we're gonna generate a content calendar, and now you can see that it is going on its own. So I think it said Mondays and Thursdays. It is giving criteria for each post, create a catchy headline limited to 100 characters. Jyunmi, 100 characters still. Jyunmi and I are like engaged in agree to disagree about how long headings should be. A brief description, right? And then 5 relevant hashtags. That's a pretty normal LinkedIn recipe for a post, and that came up with it on its own. So again, you're getting the benefit of this kind of stuff. Ensure the content ideas are diverse, right? So we have 5 steps. We can just go through all of that. And the AI hashtags, we have a bunch of stuff. Present it in the following format, right? Again, when we were talking about the things that you might give it an input, a process, and then a format for it to deliver the content back to you. This is actually doing all of that recipe for you. Great. So Brian, will you hit continue? Because when we hit continue, now we're going to go into the console. Sorry, now we're going to go into the workbench. And we can actually, this is the point where you would start using your $5 stuff, but we could go in to the variable and enter a topic. And Brian, if you click the squiggly brackets up on the left, up on the right.
Here.
Yep. That's where you get an opportunity to go in and edit your topic, right? So you can give it any topic that a daily AI show might do something with.
Working with Claude's workbench and using Claude to help you come up with new prompt ideas.
Nice. How meta can we get? All right. So now we're going to run it. Ooh. All right. And so we see it's giving it in the format. And let's see. So we have some interesting things. Let's say that we didn't like this result. It looks like it's given us content ideas, but it did not actually give us the content itself, did it?
No, it appears that we're getting the title. Here, let's look at this in well, text didn't help us much, did it? There we go. We can see this a little bit here. Poll, what's your biggest challenge with AI prompts? Description, interactive poll exploring, common prompt engineering challenges, share your experiences and learn. I mean, that is a poll, so I don't know how much, but there is no prompt in there.
Okay.
Vote. Yeah, there's no actual prompt, just the description and the headline, the description, and the hashtags.
Nice. So let's go ahead and copy the prompt back from your user message right there.
Over here?
Yep.
You want me to copy the whole thing?
Copy the whole thing.
Okay.
And go back to the dashboard. And let's improve the prompt. So
That here?
Yep. That's cool. You could also put it in system message, but user message makes good sense. What we'd like to improve? Well, we'd like it to actually generate, let's say, some intro content and a tie-in with a soft CTA to come back and watch our show. Anything else we think? Let's see. Meta, we're not using Llama. Thank you, Eric. Here we go. I'm so excited to be on this new platform. Meta, you're not using Llama. Comedy drum.
Is this what you wanted here, Beth? Is this right?
Okay. Yep. So now we've given it back its own thing, and it's going to ingest that in the context of what we asked for more. There are sometimes where I see prompting professionals go through and ask just on principle, right? Like you get a prompt and then you put it in the prompt improver and say, make it better. Eric, I can't believe I got a rim shot for that. Yeah. Yes. It's been a rough morning so far. I am loving the humor. Thank you very much. You can see that it's going through. It has 6 steps that it goes through when it improves your prompt. And now it's going to write the final draft. And so we can open that in Workbench and we can do the same kind of thing.
Do you want me to do a similar topic?
Yep.
Topic.
See, and this is why I copy everything that I write in the freaking thing.
The topic is how Claude can help you write new posts using their dashboard and Workbench features, I guess. That's not what I said earlier, but just
that's all right. We're gonna do it.
It'll give us. Hopefully, it's going to give us an actual. Okay, so we got the brainstorming for it,
right? And we have content formats. And now we're going to go down. And so this is kind of what Brian and I were talking about. So the brainstorming, it's showing you the brainstorming, right? And there we go. We have a join us for a comprehensive tour that meanders around several times before you actually get to the tour, but it's still an excellent tour. Thank you very much.
It's still not really giving us content. Is it like the actual copy of it? But that's something we would have to go in there and maybe just try to factor in as like an additional, variable or yeah.
We asked for like an intro and and something like that. So again, you can go back and forth with this until it generates a prompt that gives you the results that you want. And that's really the point of this show, is to show you that you can come from an idea, a goal that you have that you want to get done with AI, and start there and then iterate back and forth with this, as opposed to having to generate it, try to look at it. What did it do wrong? Oh, I should give it a role now. So now I need to figure out what the role is going to be, what that language is. This is a very hold your hand, let's get it done kind of thing.
My big takeaway is that with very little text put in as the generation of the prompt, you get a very structured, sophisticated output that's following all the guidelines that are necessary for great prompt engineering. And then you can work, just as we always do with AIs, iteratively in conversation with that improver to refine it to the point where you're getting the output you want. You then copy that, put it in your prompt library, and you're going to reuse it over and over with variables.
Right. And so I'm going to share one that I did this weekend. I'm not going to try to generate it. Don't worry, everyone. But so Claude recently talked about adding their data analysis process. So now, if you're a big fan of Code Interpreter or being able to upload like CSVs to OpenAI, ChatGPT, so that it gives you some analysis. Claude can now do that too. So this is something that got generated. You'll recognize the structure. You're an AI assistant tasked with analyzing YouTube channel content metrics, providing insights. You'll be given a CSV file. So that's the reference to the variable, right? And then this is the CSV file. And if I click here on my variables, I can give it the data of the CSV file. So I can't just upload it in the workbench. I could on the front end using this with Cloud. And then I could ask a specific question like, what kind of shows help people stay the longest? Those sorts of things. And it gives me all my performance metrics and my specific question. And then when I run it in the workbench, I'm analyzing it, and it gives me some really great things. And it says, you might know because you're watching us, tool reviews and comparisons and in-depth technical analysis. So that's where the idea for this show came from. And we would love to hear from you. Andy and Jyunmi, I'm going to stop screen sharing. And I am wondering what your thoughts are on this.
Well, first of all, I will second Andy's statement and say powerful tools, powerful features. It also reminds me that I need to use Claude a little more than I do and take advantage of those features. I really enjoyed the entire process to show us from start to finish through the console as a whole. When it comes to my own personal prompt engineering, right, and prompt development and things like that, I tend to do my own scratch pad. Right, I'll come out with my own versions, run it through, see what chat thinks about it, and then start implementing. Definitely taking it from one resource to the other is far easier through console because all of the steps are there. And I'm a process guy, so I like having that all in one interface. It's the same reason I love all the features in ChatGPT because they're all interconnected now. So that keeps me in that same environment. It's far more efficient for me. So on that level, great. They've done a fantastic job. So I think all in all, my biggest takeaway would be that if you don't know anything about prompt engineering, these features are going to improve your prompt development 2x, 5x. It's just going to skyrocket. You're going to hockey sticks on that. So I think that's the biggest benefit of going through this process, right? You can literally start with something like, I want to write a story about a cat, and then just go through your development cycle. So that's my biggest takeaway. That's the thing that I'm latching onto as part of the overall feature set.
Nice. Thank you. I'm going to actually share screen, and then I'm going to ask Brian for your takeaways too, because I realize when we're using this console, You're going to hit run here once you've entered your variables, but you can also come up here and switch the model settings. So Claude Haiku 3.5 is the latest one that came out. It's really pretty good, and it's a ton cheaper. These are pretty cheap anyway. I'm guessing Brian spent less than a quarter on what we did, and maybe slightly, maybe a little
I
bit
didn't
more.
imagine it was even that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The temperature settings, for people who don't know, this is like how creative you want it to be, how far in the probability you want it to pull things from. Max tokens to sample, because we're writing content. We chose a lot. This is the maximum that it can do in this. So we're going to come out of that. We could get the code for this, and we could copy it in text or markdown, as Brian was showing. So,
Yeah, if I just saw this, and I don't know if you already maybe mentioned this, look down at the bottom where it says improve prompt beta and click on that.
It's actually going to go back to the prompt improver. What would you like to see? So we're not going to have to copy the prompt. Yeah.
Right. You don't have to leave. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So that in itself is a huge improvement right there. And I missed that. I didn't notice that was down there. But we're in the workbench right now. And as Beth is showing on the screen, like we could improve the prompt right from here. Without having to go out of this or copy and paste like we were showing earlier. So there you go. Even more efficiencies with using this. And who just said it in the Justin said, I feel like Anthropic has some of the industry's best prompt engineers working for them. Full stop. I 100% agree, Justin. I feel the same way that Claude gets a lot of its due. I don't feel like nobody is like giving Claude its flowers or Anthropic its flowers, but it really is an industry leader in a lot of ways. OpenAI gets some of the more splashy stuff, but Claude is just Anthropic is just consistent with not only improving their sort of back of the house API type stuff like you're seeing here with the dashboard and the workbench. I will even say too, like this is Claude, but like the OpenAI playground to this day still does a better job with some outputs from me than I can get inside of ChatGPT. And it's kind of like what you showed before, Beth, with just being able to adjust temperature, because I don't always want a temperature of 1. Sometimes a temperature of 0.35, especially if I'm running LinkedIn posts from transcript. I don't use 1. Secret sauce is I use 0.35, right?
Yeah, because like, don't be creative. This is what we said in the transcript, right? Like, no, don't. What Brian probably should have said when he was talking in the transcript. No.
That's when you start getting imagine if you had this, like Claude, that's up there with Delve right now is Imagine. It's starting to take the top spot for me, because if you let it, not just Claude, but if you're looking for, was this written by AI, and in the copy, in the newsletters that we see come out, I mean, I read a newsletter this morning. I was like, this whole thing is AI generated. I mean, good for them, but the whole thing was AI generated. And you could just tell, because it was like, imagine a world if you were able to do this. I'm like, that's AI. That's AI immediately, so you can get some of that out of there by, if you choose, going into these backend like workbenches in Claude and Anthropic, which will allow you to fine tune some of that out of there, either by model or by temperature, like you were showing, Beth. Super powerful tools. I mean, look, if you want to get good at prompting, there you go. There's a tool for you. It's free, or very, very close to free. It's very cheap.
And so there were three like ways that you could generate a prompt that we were talking about. One was just come up with a goal. I want you to do this, generate the prompt. Another was you have inputs, a process, and outputs, a format that you want. Those are also things you can use to generate the prompt. You can also conceivably reverse engineer, like give a post, write me a prompt that would write this. So those are the 3 things that are probably the easiest way to get started. And Matichek has a question about temperature. It's about the probability. So it will not necessarily say incorrect stuff, but if you push it really high, it will. And as Brian and I know, because we used to demo this in our prompt class, when it starts to say random wackadoodle stuff, the most probable next thing it says is also random wackadoodle. right? Like you're
I see it blowing over the cliff mid-sentence. It's funny actually to see it because it starts making sense. You're like, that's kind of a thing. And then it starts throwing a little gibberish and you're like, that's going off the tracks. And then the next 7 lines are just complete babble and gibberish because it can't predict the next thing anymore. So it is pretty funny to see. But yeah, play with temperature. You should. Because you could drastically change. You could make a good prompt excellent by just simply messing with the temperature and changing no copy whatsoever in the prompt, just by changing the temperature based on what your desired outputs are, what your goals are.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us, for sticking with us. Hope you make prompts later today. Tomorrow we're going to do a tool review of Runway's Act 1. And also they added camera shots. So come and join us for that. Runway is a video generator, in case you don't know. And yeah, have a great day, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.